I'm Michael Bain and welcome to Triggered, coming to you from the secret hidden bunker in the Rocky Mountains and Dragon House Studios. And yes, as the summer grinds to a close, I'm steadily working on my lever action rifles in the 21st Century book. I told you about this guy last week, Henry Long Ranger 6.5 Creedmoor. This is the scope I chose for it. It's a Lucid Optics 4.5 to 18 in MLX, which is a first focal plane scope, mil-dot reticle, and as a friend of mine said, it's got to be the perfect scope for a 6.5 Creedmoor. You'll be seeing more on this. But this week we've dipped all the way back to 2018 in our archives for another one of my classic lever guns, a Grail gun, the Big Horn Armory 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum. Let's take a look about that. I have returned from Texas, and the dread hogs have been slain. Remember, I was using a Red Hawk in 10mm with a Crimson Trace CTS 1000 dot on it, and it worked super. Worked super. One thing I do want to mention, hogs are tough. I've been shooting some big bores, for most of the summer, and I'm used to a big bore being able to actually cause a Prius to trip over and fall on its back and stick its little electric paws in the air. But when you're using a 10mm, you're right around 41 Magnum, between 357 and 41 Magnum specs. You know what you have to do? You have to call your shot. Shot placement is everything. Anyway, what I wanted to show you here, though, I'm really excited about this. This is one of my Grail guns. What's a Grail gun? It's like the Holy Grail gun. It's a gun that you say, man, I want that, but it's somehow, some way, just the teeniest, tiniest bit out of reach. This is a Big Horn Armory 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, a model 89. It's 18-inch barrel. It's got a Scout scope mount on it. This is deluxe wood because it is a beautiful gun. Skinner, peep sight. I just think this is an amazing gun for a lot of different reasons. It's a Grail gun because, number one, I really like lever action rifles. I mean, much more than a lot of other things. If I'm going to go into the field hunting, I like lever action rifles. I've taken classes. Self-defense lever action rifles. Of course, you're going to see one from the great Lou Gosnell at Gunsight, shooting gallery in 2019. So I like them. And you're always, when you like them, you're always going, man, I would really like to have one of the top of the line guns. And it's kind of pressing if you happen to be the guy who does gun stories, because I tend to be in gun museums around the world, and I've seen the finest lever action guns ever made. And I know that I can never in a million billion years afford them. But there are top-end guns that I absolutely made it my goal to get. And this Big Horn Armory 500 is one of them. Isn't it beautiful? I hadn't quite made up my mind until Greg Bechtel showed up at Gunsight for our filming for lever action self-defense and the whole thing on lever actions for Shooting Gallery a few months back, if you remember. And he brought his own 500 Magnum, 454. His guns come 500, 454, 500 line ball, which is a shorter cartridge than the great big Smith & Wesson Magnum. I think 475 line ball, all thumpers, one and all. But the gun that I thought was the most fun to shoot was this one, the 18-inch barrel 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum. It is a thumper, and there's no way around it. First, before we get into talk about the cartridge a little bit like that, I just wanted to show you briefly a little comparison maybe between this and my other top-of-the-line lever gun, which of course is my Marlin 4570 that went with me to Africa, built by the Marlin Custom Shop. You see a lot of things similarity. This is a shorter barrel. This is octagonal barrel, so it's a little shorter than the 18-inch barrel. You'll see Skinner sights because I like Skinner sights a lot. This particular, the Marlin, of course, is set up for working. It's got the leather pad, got the leather butt pad. This new, the Big Horn, Big Horn, just came out of the box, so I haven't put any working tools on it. You'll see they're very similar. I think the Big Horn is around under 8 pounds, 7/8, 7/9 ounces, something like that. The Marlin's a little lighter than that by my specification, specifically on the extra inches on the barrel. But What I like about this gun is it's an interesting engineering tour de force. This week's Triggered is brought to you by Midway USA. Just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. Volquartsen Firearms. Excellence is essential. Taurus USA. Prepare and protect. Rock Island Armory Arms Corps. Home of the STK 100. The 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum. You see these big guys, whenever you see them referred to in a gun magazine, they are always referred to as cigar-sized cartridges. You know why? Because they're cigar-sized cartridges. They're huge. You know, one of the biggest handgun cartridges, especially designated handgun cartridge ever made. And it's an interesting history behind these guns, which I always thought was kind of odd, is you got to go, it all goes back to Dirty Harry. It all goes back to Dirty Harry being able to say, holding a Smith & Wesson Model 29 this is a 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun made, and will blow your head clear off, plumb off, whatever. Smith & Wesson loved that. Smith & Wesson made a fortune selling Model 29s after that phrase became essentially a part of the culture. I bought one. I actually bought one for $275 at a local gun store in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I bought it on layaway. I think it took me 8 months to get it out, but I still have it. Wonderful gun. But realistically, when Dirty Harry, when Clint Eastwood said that, it wasn't true. The 450 core Casull had already been built. Dick Casull had already made that cartridge. It just was not available commercially. So 1971, Dirty Harry. The first commercial 454s, I think Freedom Arms, came out much, much later. 90s, somewhere in there, 97. And so Smith & Wesson, the guys at Smith & Wesson are sitting around thinking, wouldn't it be cool if once again Smith & Wesson ruled the roost? If once again you could say about a Smith & Wesson gun that it was the most powerful handgun made, and not only would it take your head plumb off, but it will actually cause your car to explode. So they put their minds to work, and they came up with this, the 500 Magnum. And then the addition there is this gun. It is the X frame. It is the huge Smith & Wesson frame revolver specifically designed to accommodate this massive 500 Magnum cartridge. And I believe this is all happening around 2003, 2004. Interestingly enough, I was able to get my hands on one of the first ones. We were filming a pilot for a show, interestingly enough, that never came to fruition. And we were down at Thunder Ranch, Clint Smith's training facility in Texas, myself and Ken Jorgensen, who then worked for Smith & Wesson. And Ken Jorgensen had bought one of these guys, a super long barrel with the compensator, you know, I don't know, enough weight that you can actually use it, you know, as a hammer or maybe to fell a tree. And so we took him out to the range. We set it up for a night shoot because we like flame. And so I think we had 275 grains, some of the lighter 500 Magnum loads, and we were shooting watermelons, which was a big concession for Clint Smith at Thunder Ranch because he never shot watermelons, but we just couldn't resist it with this bad boy. We set the cameras up. Clint pulled the trigger. A watermelon actually went into the Great Beyond, and he fired a couple more shots. And I always remember, I wish I had the film because it's a great piece of film. Clint takes the gun down, you know, pops the cylinder, looks back at the camera and says, "This is a 2 Tylenol pistol." And that may be the greatest definition of the 500 Magnum that I'd ever seen. You know, essentially, I have to go to my cheat sheet here, but you know, what you're talking about is a cartridge designed to take down virtually anything on the planet. You know, actually going all the way back to the Jurassic. You stumble into something like a Velociraptor, small T-Rex, it's going to do it. You're looking at 300 grain bullets at 2,000 feet per second. Or as you go up in size, all the way up to 500 grain bullet at 1,400 feet per second. 500 grain bullet at 1,400 feet per second is sporty. Trust me on this. You can go higher than that. That's something we have talked about here before. This, of course, is a totally different kind of 500 Smith & Wesson. This is the John Ross Special with a little bit less weight, obviously, little cut in, shorter barrel, no compensator. John is the author of the cult classic book, Unintended Consequences. John fell in love with the 500 Magnum, and he probably has put more development in the cartridge than anybody else in the world. And this is a pistol he designed and the Performance Center produced, and it's a wonderful gun, especially if you load it down to a point that you don't have to pick the hammer out of your forehead. But John went to heavier and heavier bullets. The twist in this gun is designed to stabilize heavier bullets. We go back to just basically the commercial rounds available, which, as I said, once again, would take down any living animal. There's nothing here that these things would not knock down. And the 500 Magnum has kind of grown in popularity, oddly enough. Why do people buy things like this? Why do people buy this guy? Why did I buy this guy? Because I did. Because it's the most powerful handgun made. It'll take your head plumb off. And I really like shooting big bores. You know, once again, this is something we've talked about tremendously on the show here. Because there's a style to it, there's a training regimen to it. One of the great things about these Hogue grips that came on the revolvers is they have right here in the back. Let's see if I can get this guy around without pointing at my head. We got right here in the back, you got a pad of sorbothane, you know, just like you might put on a foot pad. So it takes a lot of the heat out of it when that sorbothane catches it right here in the palm of your hand, because that's where it hurts. For people involved in handgun hunting, this and its sister cartridge, which is the 460 Smith & Wesson Magnum, arguably the finest handgun hunting cartridges in the world, specifically because they're designed for it. They're designed for big, dangerous game, and they've been used around the world. I like shooting big bores. I like shooting big bores. I like this big bore. One thing, too, that I like is that essentially all the ammo companies have kind of adopted this cartridge. This was a successful cartridge introduction, and it may have been successful on novelty, but I think in the end it becomes successful on utility. So any cartridge company, pick one. I'm actually waiting. My ammunition sponsor, of course, is Fiocchi, and they were out of the 500 Magnum, so I'm waiting for a case to arrive, and it should. But, you know, look around. Every ammunition company makes them. These are Grizzly hunting loads. They're Thumpers. I think 375 grain bullet. The Arms Corps loads, which are, what are these guys? 300 grain XTP. Fine hunting load. And if you want a plink, Freedom Munitions makes their big grains, which are basically the least expensive 500 Magnums you can buy. 500 Magnum is an expensive proposition. It's an expensive proposition to reload, expensive proposition to buy factory ammo. I think the big grains are something like, call it $1.25, $1.50, $1.75 per round, which is dirt cheap for this. A lot of people wanted to bring the 500 Magnum to a lever platform, and I know a lot of people who failed at it. In fact, I handled, and I wasn't allowed to shoot, but I was able to run one Marlin that had been converted to 500 Smith & Wesson. That project died because this is a high pressure cartridge. See if it just says so. Yeah, we're talking about a 60,000 pound per square inch cartridge. Remember that trapdoor Springfields and 4570s are like 15,000 rounds, 16,000 rounds. So it's a high pressure cartridge, and generally lever action rifles are not super deluxe at handling high pressure cartridges, probably with the exception of the Browning BLRs and some of the, maybe I would go the 1895 Winchester. But what people wanted was a traditional classic lever action that would handle the heaviest 500 Magnum. So Greg Bucktel up in Cody, Wyoming, he's probably hanging out with Ashley Blinsky. Have you seen Ashley's television show on Discovery Channel? Is not she doing wonderful? Gosh, Ashley, congratulations. Also on your marriage. Anyway, Greg set to work to create a 500 Magnum, classic lever gun. And what he did is he did what I think John Browning would have been very proud of. Greg took elements of John Browning's, I think, 1886 lever action, which was designed, I think, 4570, 4590, big cartridges, big lifter, big cartridges. And Greg incorporated that with elements of the 1892, which, of course, John Browning designed specifically for pistol caliber cartridge, smokeless pistol caliber cartridges, sturdy little action. And what he came up with was this combo action that would handle the biggest handgun cartridges made on earth. And here we go. Now you can see if you look down here, we drop. You can see a familial relationship with the Browning designs. You can just see kind of how that works out. We have this curved lever. I always want straight stock. In talking to Greg, Greg figured ergonomically, he knows more about this rifle than any living human and the variants of it. And he says the curved lever is just easier to run with these great big fat, what do we say, cigar-sized cartridges. And the 8 pounds, 7, 8 pounds, you're going to feel the recoil with it, certainly. But it's not going to knock you on your back. If you'd like to feel some real recoil, I can give you my Ruger #1 in 450/400 3-inch Natural Express. That will actually cause one of your eardrums to burst. But this gun, I shot Greg's version of it, and what I was amazed with was how well it shot. So I finally sucked it up, and I said to Greg, these are essentially semi-custom guns. You pays your money, they build you a gun exactly as you want. And I said, this is the gun I want. He strongly suggested the 18 over the 16-inch barrel. I wanted the Skinner sights. I want a scout mount. Very likely an aim point hunter is going to reside on this when I take it into the woods. We'll always want recoil pads on these things. And then Greg graciously upgraded the wood, because I just love wood. So you're going to see me doing a lot more with this rifle over the course of 2019 as we go forward. I'm all set up to reload the cartridge. I've reloaded it for the pistols. I've got brass. I got loading components, great big press dies. So first, thank you, Greg. Thank you. This was worth every penny that I sent you. A Grail gun, you really can't put a value on it because you know it's something you're going to have the entire rest of your life. And I am so looking forward to this. I have to say the 500 Magnum is just a boomer. I love that gun. It is a great iteration of a classic lever gun with that twist of a very modern cartridge. I'm Michael Bain. This is Triggered, brought to you by Midway USA. Just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. You can find us on michaelbain.tv. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Rumble. And when you do find us, please subscribe. We'll see you next week.